Hi, everybody. Frank McNally from Public Spend Forum. Thanks for joining us today for another in our series of eProcurement demo days presented in partnership with NIGP. Today is a great topic. This is from Ivalua, and it's from A to Z, streamlining procurement and delivering value through procurement technology. So like I said, we have been doing this as a series, and our goals here are to help you discover leading practices in procurement that can improve outcomes for you and your customers. And we do that by surveying the emerging technology landscape and reviewing how the tools that are out there can be leveraged to improve individual and organizational performance. And that's going to help you determine how your organization and other professionals are tackling procurement challenges through real case studies like the ones that we have today. We've got two great guests from Ivalua, Ty Levine, the Marketing Director for Americas for Ivalua, and Colin Wojcik, Manager for Solutions Consulting at Ivalua. I'm going to let them introduce themselves right now.
This is Ty. Hi. Welcome today. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon. This is Colin Wojcik. Looking forward to running through the demo, and thanks for having us.
Well, we appreciate you guys being on with us today. It's a real pleasure to have you. So really quickly about Public Spend Forum, we are a market intelligence and best practices platform for public sector buyers and suppliers. And through this platform, we help government programs, buyers, and suppliers access supplier and market knowledge and data. And we provide best practices frameworks and standards, such as tools that we have that are useful. We've got a big public procurement workforce competency survey that's underway. We have these how to buy webinars on our events page at publicspendforum.net that are really useful for professionals that are looking to improve themselves and their skills. They are eligible for one continuous learning point if you join us for the live sessions. And then we also feature through publicspendforum.net a global community and network of peers and experts in public procurement. One of my favorite things about publicspendforum.net is our discussion boards. There's a lot of really neat discussions that go on, people helping each other, sharing tips and tricks. It's really nice to see. So that global community at publicspendforum.net is free to join. So just visit us online and you can get registered right away. I'm also really excited about a tool that we just launched over the summer called GovShop. GovShop is a single place to search, find, and connect with suppliers. It's basically a browser-based search engine dedicated to the public sector. We designed it with a knowledge of government contracting professionals' needs and an understanding of the procurement process. So it's got unique filters such as socioeconomic filters and business size, product service code categories that you can use to really find a short list of qualified suppliers in minutes. We've got hundreds of thousands of suppliers in there currently. If you're a supplier out there interested in this, you can claim your profile for free. And put a lot of really good information in there. If you're a government contracting professional, GovShop is free to use, and it's browser-based. There's nothing to download, no licenses to buy. So you can get started searching right away by keyword, category code, or contract vehicles. We encourage you to check it out. It's govshop.com, the one-stop shop for government market research. All right, that's enough from me. Ty, I'm going to kick it over to you so you can introduce Ivalua and tell us a little bit more about the great services you offer.
Thanks, Frank. So what is Ivalua? I thought I'd give you a little bit of an introduction and then turn it over to Colin to sort of look under the hood. So we're the fastest growing procurement platform. Whether you measure it by employee growth or revenue, it's pretty safe to say we are the fastest growing in the world today. We're stable at the same time. Most people don't realize that we are 17 plus years old. You may or may not have heard that we received a financial investment of capital last year. We operated for 16 plus years without any of that. So we've been fiscally responsible from day one. As you can imagine, in the technology world, there aren't many companies of any size, shape, or form that can say that. We're the only full suite procurement platform that is in the Magic Quadrant or leadership category by the three major analysts, Gartner, Forrester, and Spend Matters. We're a full suite platform, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a few minutes, why that's so different. 250 customers and growing, greater than 98% retention rate, and right now we are the choice of states, cities, federal government, and agencies alike. We like to talk about the journey, your procurement journey. Think about these things as you go along and think about where your procurement organization and where you're headed as an organization overall. What you need today is not what you will need tomorrow. Success requires looking ahead and laying the groundwork for best-in-class procurement. And best-in-class is only scratching the surface. Innovative leaders that we work with and that we see are going beyond best-in-class. They realize that their true potential and are wanting to build a true competitive advantage. Technology, is it friend or is it foe? Only IValue supports leaders at every step of their journey, beginning, middle, best in class and beyond, empowering them to quickly deploy best practices tailored to their industry, and in your case, public sector, and then bringing your talent's best ideas to life. And again, I'll remind you, we are number one. We are the industry-leading retention rate at greater than 98%. That is so important because, as you probably know, with a lot of software, a lot of technology, if you're not buying it like a server and going to use it for 10 years, you're buying software as a service, you could buy it for a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year period of time. And then what do you do next? Do you reinvest with that organization, that company? Do you look someplace else? Have you outgrown it, et cetera? We have a 98% retention rate. So why IValue? Getting back to what I talked about before, we are a full suite. We are built on one code base. So critical. Talk to any IT person in your organization, and they're going to want to know, is everything built on one code base? Has somebody created a full suite by acquiring 3 or 4 other companies, kludging them together, and figuring out a way to make it work? We don't have to figure out a way to make it work. It works. We integrate on the back end with all of the ERP solutions that are out there, whether you're SAP, Oracle, Deltek, Workday, all of them. It's easy to integrate. You can also, when you decide to get involved and launch IValue in your organization, you can start with one module or the complete suite from day one. What are the modules? Supplier management, sourcing, contract management, procurement, invoicing, strategy, and analytics. Let me give you 2 examples of what I mean by that. The city of New York, they're a customer of ours. They went through a massive analysis and looking for the right software provider a couple of years ago. They recognize that they need everything, but they also know their organization. They also know the complexity of procurement at the level of the city of New York. So they went with a full suite solution, but have jumped in one module at a time. They started with one, they're now on module 2. The state of Arizona, which launched with us a month ago, they were ready for all of it. CACI, which is a federal supplier in the DC area, had been around longer than the other 2. They jumped in with everything from day one and have grown inside of all of that over the last few years. We're SaaS-based. We're configurable and flexible. This is something very important. We're not an out-of-the-box solution. You buy the box, here it is, go implement it and go use it. We work with you to make it work the way you want it to work. It's so important, and this is one of the reasons why we have become the #1 choice for public sector organizations, is we are configurable and we are flexible. We're uniquely designed to enable procurement groups, users, and suppliers to free up capacity, automate processes, make better decisions, and take a strategic approach to managing spend and suppliers. And I said it, I'll say it again, we are recognized as an industry leader. The next slide will show you some of the analysts, but more importantly, some of our customers in the United States, Canada, and around the world. So we like to talk about smart procurement and transforming public sector procurement in a couple of short sentences. To enable smart procurement and realize the full value of data, companies must address both the underlying data quality issues and adopt the latest AI, machine learning, and other technologies. So let me stop for one quick second. Everybody is talking about AI. You probably have heard blockchain. The most important thing to understand today is we are in the nascent stages. And what that's going to look like as far as what value it provides, we're still identifying. But only IValue empowers leaders with both the latest AI applications and the data foundation that power smarter procurement. It's really important to understand. I am of the firm belief that where AI is going to have its greatest impact, and we are getting to that stage, is around data. We already come to the table with this outstanding data foundation, and as we begin to apply the best in breed of AI on top of that, we expect to be a market leader in that. Why public sector and IValue? Some companies do, some software providers are great here, great there, this vertical, that vertical. We really are uniquely positioned for the public sector. The time has come for you all to realize that the time is now. Today's technology lets public sector leaders adopt best practices that deliver the experience and value that constituents and employees expect from their governments. And only IValue is able to empower public sector leaders to transform procurement to meet today's expectations. We offer industry-leading capabilities that are the choice of many of the world's top companies, combined with the flexibility, and I'll throw in the word configurability, and experience to meet the unique requirements of the public sector. We have proven results tailored to the public sector. What are your challenges? We really believe that they are around robust, unique requirements in a high regulatory environment, a use it or lose it budgetary approach, content and data spread over multiple systems tangled in an impossible to manage relational source to pay content. I believe I read someplace that the city of New York had 27 different agencies within their procurement organization alone. Dated technology and manual paper-based processes that clearly are error-prone, limited spend controls and visibility into suppliers and contracts, a lack of transparency. So why digitization? Very simply. How about 12 pounds of paper and saving trees? And you're probably wondering, what is he talking about? City of New York told us that by implementing IValue, they went from a 12-pound of paper process for onboarding a new supplier to zero. And we categorize this win-win and the importance of digitization into three buckets: government leaders, public, and suppliers. Because you've got to remember, you've got internal, you have external, and then you have external dealing with you from a business standpoint, suppliers. So this isn't going to be news to anybody, but financial control, visibility, the new requirements, needing to be agile, quality, transparency, progress towards modernization and improving services. Suppliers want to do business with people and organizations that it's easy to do business with. Everybody wants transparency and an information access. Cost savings, not just to suppliers, but there's going to be an ROI for government leaders. And if you think about the public, there's going to be an ROI in the amount of time that they may be engaged with you that is significantly improved and reduced. And collaboration. Today's needs are control, efficiency, and visibility. You need to manage spending, obvious. We all need, whether it doesn't matter what organization or what industry, to automate processes, which is going to increase efficiency, and it's going to create transparency. So we'll have time for questions at the end, but now why don't we turn it over to Colin and take a little bit of a look under the hood of IValue.
Hey, Ty, while you're making this transition, this is Frank McNally. I just wanted to jump in with a quick housekeeping note. So it is possible to ask questions, excuse me, through the Zoom webinar chat or the QA. So for folks that are attending, if you sort of hover your mouse over the Zoom player, it should pull up a menu on the bottom of your screen, and you'll see the chat there as well as the QA. So during the demo, if you do have questions about what Colin's going to go over, you can chat them, I'll receive them, and then I can interject to ask Colin the question if it's sort of in tune with the demonstration. Otherwise, we'll hold them to the end. So please do, we encourage questions. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks. Sorry, go ahead, Colin, whenever you're ready.
All right, great. Can everybody hear me well enough?
Yep. Loud and clear.
All right, great. So today, what we're going to try and do is take you through a day in the life of a user in the IValue system. So I'm currently logged in as Ben Windsor. Ben Windsor would be a contract manager in some sort of public space, in charge of things like managing contracts, potentially sourcing events and things like that. So the first thing you'll notice is that we are in the contract portal or the buyer portal where Ben will land each morning when he comes in and logs into the system. And there's a couple different things I'd just like to point out on here. The first thing is the information that's available to Ben. So what we want to try to do is give Ben the information he needs to kind of jumpstart his day. So in today's scenario, we're going to focus on a contract that may be over budget that could potentially impact a large AP project that we're running internally. But before we jump to that, I'm just going to explain some of the other areas of the homepage. So there's a couple different views that you can have here. The one you see here is effectively a summary bubble, and at any point you can click on this and jump out to the details of that summary bubble. This information can also be presented in a grid format. So if this helps you manage your day or manage the validations or things that are waiting your attention in the morning, you can do this either way. Some of the other nice features within the homepage itself is the analytics can be integrated directly into your landing page. So we'll talk a little bit at the end of the call today about the different reports the solution offers. Again, these can be presented on your homepage, and what's great about these are they are all interactive. So for example, as I hover over this pie chart, I can right click, and then I can actually break this down by some drill down parameters within the tool. Additionally, we have some messaging capabilities. So you can see Ben, who we're logged in today with, is already communicating with Patricia Taylor around some contract information, and we'll actually go through that here in a little bit. And then one of the last things I show you before we actually jump into the real scenario is our global search. So as Ty mentioned in the intro, one of the things we really pride ourselves on is the solution is all developed on one single code base. And what that means as we go through the different modules today, you'll see a similar look and feel. The architecture will be consistent as we go about. But even more importantly, it gives you the ability to search information across different modules. So in this example, I simply type in IBM in our global search. And you'll see all the different references to IBM that come up in our system. So whether we're currently in the process of a purchase requisition, whether we're going to talk about some supplier information, invoices. And again, this is one of the key differentiators is that with this global search, it gives you kind of this quick access to any of this information right here in this search. And then you simply click on it and it'll take you out to that specific object reference. So for today's example, as I mentioned, we are going to start the process of looking into a contract that is currently over budget. And so as Ben Windsor logs in the morning, he has his summary bubbles that let him know that there's something going on. And in this case, he has one contract here that needs to be reviewed. And really all Ben needs to do is simply click on this summary bubble. And this will take him out to the one in question here. One of the things to point out with all of our browse screens or grids is this idea that we have on-demand reporting. So at any point, if, for example, you wanted to switch this up and search by a different filter, you can see it's going to give you a different list of results here within the tool. But what's great about this is then you can actually save these as favorites for future use. So we could call this favorite contract. And then anytime you log into the solution, you can simply click under your favorite searches and then access that analysis, and it'll pull up these same filters here. One step further to that is once you filter this information the way you want, you can actually right click on these headings, move this information around, remove anything that may not be relevant. And then you can actually download that on demand as a a report. So it's kind of a first line on-demand reporting that you can do with any grid within our tool. So just a couple different, like to point out some just things that help your day or can help you with the solution. So let's go back to our original scenario. And in this case, this is going to be our contract that is currently above budget. And so what we can simply do is click on this little pen. And what it's going to do is bring up our contract overview screen. And so you can see right here from our analytic that the contract is well over budget. And what we can do is start to go through and look at different areas of the contract and figure out if we need to renegotiate this contract, if it's something we simply want to send out for bid. Part of that is what we can look in the risk analysis. And we'll notice that this contract maybe has a low risk score or is underperforming in certain areas. And you'll also notice there's an evaluation in here. So at any point, you can come in, look at the risk scores, but then you can dig deeper and review the risk assessment, maybe see why they were dinged in certain areas or what the issues are going on with these contracts. The other area might be the performance evaluation. And you can see generally in this area, anything below a 3 would be considered a low performance score. And so again, we have a variety of different assessments that would generate these scores. And so at this point, we're looking at a contract that's over budget. There's some issues with performance on the contract itself, and it might be time to dig a little deeper. In fact, at this point, we could simply look out and take a look at the supplier record itself. And what this is going to do is it's going to reach out to the supplier module. And again, it's pulling all the information about the supplier related to this specific contract. And so again, we have an overview screen here. You can see there's some moderate risk level here. Additionally, just some spend data, any top items. So again, just a high level view of everything that's going on with this customer. This again starts to get into the analytics of the solution where we can start to break down spend by organization or spend by a specific commodity. And again, keep in mind, anytime you see these graphs, they're always interactive. So you can always right click. The one on the left-hand side here, if I hold my mouse down, it'll actually get more granular per the specific organizations that you're working with. But again, the goal here is to kind of get this 360 view of everything that's going on with this supplier and with this contract and really decide if we need to send these services or these goods out for bid. And so again, we can simply go through the information provided on the supplier's record. Again, we have a performance log here that'll show you some different performance metrics. So the ones we were looking at previously was performance and risk related to that contract. Now we're actually looking at performance and risk related to the supplier as a whole. And again, all this information is always stored as part of the supplier record or as part of the contract record. So if there's any question regarding the risk score or maybe why you're sending something out to bid, you can always find this information in a central location here in the solution. So again, at this point, we've reviewed this contract. We believe, based on the risk and some of the other factors here, that we should send this out for bid and see maybe if we can get better services or a better price. So in the future, we're not going over our budget amount within the tool. So at this point, what we can do is go out and actually find these services that are currently being offered in our price list. And so if we look down here, here's one of the IBM services that was being offered. This is another one. So we can select a couple of the different services. And then what we can do is actually simply click on the Create Bid button here within our item list. And what this is going to do is it's going to simply flip this information over into our sourcing module. But before we can do that, it's just going to ask us a few questions. So for example, do we want to maintain or do we want to include IBM as part of the suppliers that will bid here? Additionally, as we click on the supplier repository or go into select suppliers, it's going to bring up a bunch of information about those suppliers. So again, when we looked in that supplier record, we were looking for things like supplier risk, supplier performance scores. And so you can simply come in and make choices here of which suppliers to select. And then we're also trying to help you, guide you to make the correct choices. So for example, down here, you can see the supplier may be forbidden from working in certain industries or within certain organizations within your company. And so at this point, we can select a couple different suppliers. So I think we're going to invite Tata because I know they provide good solution consulting. And we'll click on the selection button and close it out. If for any reason a supplier is not available within the supplier repository, you always have the option to go and create a supplier on the fly within the tool here. So at this point, we have a couple different suppliers. These were all the items that we pulled from our item master. And now all we have to do is decide which sourcing type we would like to run within the solution. And we'll go ahead and just select request for proposal and click on go to sourcing project. And so now what we've done since we initiated the demonstration is we came in again as Ben Windsor. We noticed that there was an issue with a contract. In this case, the contract was over budget. And so we investigated a little bit further. We went and reviewed that contract. We noticed there were some low performance issues. It was way over budget as the report indicated. We had some issues with the risk score. Then we also reviewed the supplier record as a whole to see if there were any issues there. And we decided based on that information that it was best to select those items that were currently being sourced through IBM and potentially send them out to a new vendor. And so what we did is we grabbed those items from our price list, and now we have those items in a sourcing event within our solution. And so again, you'll notice as we've moved across the top here, now we're actually in the sourcing menu within the tool. And this is the event we just set up here. Just to give you a quick view of sourcing projects, again, the browse screen. This is your browse screen. And again, at any point, you can determine how this information looks and is laid out. And then again, you can report against it. So at any point, maybe your manager asks you to run a report on all the sourcing events that are in a certain status. Again, you can do this on-demand reporting within the solution. For today's demo, though, we were showing how you could actually flip that information over into the sourcing event itself here. And this is our event. And so there's a couple of different things you'll notice within a sourcing event itself. What we have up here is what I consider the administrative information. So what type of project it is, the opening and close dates, any of the organization's commodities within your company that might be affected by this or may be running this. You can also add team members. There's an internal discussion form. You can bid in multiple currencies based on where folks are located that are bidding. And just some additional information. Again, we have the idea of a setup project here, or setup documents, excuse me, where we can pull over, for example, a statement of work, what's to be expected of the supplier as part of this reference itself. So again, there's a number of steps here. In the interest of time today, we have actually created an event in advance. I'm going to go ahead and show you that one. And so one of the things I should point out before I jump back is with the sourcing, in the scenario that we're discussing today, this can either be a service or a good. So you'll see today we're going to talk a little bit about services. Then when we get into the catalog and purchasing, I'll also purchase some hardware, some goods. And again, you can see that illustrated here. So whether it's a services event or a goods event, the system's very flexible, can handle both of those scenarios. So in this case, let's just go ahead and look in the event. And so as I mentioned, this is the administrative information that's all set up. Again, one of the things I want to point out is how the solution and all the modules relate back to each other. So we previously decided which suppliers that we wanted to include here. But again, if I click on this ellipse, it'll take us out and it'll show you all the suppliers that are approved, for example, to work in professional services. And so you can see the commodity for this event is professional services. And look, get right down here, it's saying, hey, you probably shouldn't work with IBM Israel for some reason. So maybe they had the same problem with contracts that we're having here in the US. And if you were to click on that supplier record, you could actually go and investigate further. Maybe there's an exception against a contract or a complaint, something like that. But again, the idea here is that we're trying to give you as much information as possible, not only as much information, but the correct information so that when your users come in and select potential new vendors, that they're getting a full picture of the health of that vendor within the tool. So again, in this scenario, we picked 3 vendors, and then we sent our different items out to bid. And as part of that process, you can request information. So you can fill out questionnaires within our tool. This can be simple information that will update the supplier record in the tool. So their name, their website. But you can also do things like risk questionnaires or environmental questionnaires that can then be scored and then used as part of the analysis to see you know, if this is the supplier you want to go with. Today, we're going to focus more on the items, and simply we are sending out to bid professional services consultant, which we had previously sourced through IBM US, and now we're looking for potential new vendors within the solution. Additionally, just to show you some other things, you can see as part of this, we can attach that example statement of work like I mentioned earlier, and then we also have a project overview and scope. So as we send this out to consulting companies, they have a full idea of what we're looking for. We can actually start that negotiation process on those documents with them as they respond to these events. So we've collected all this information. We know which suppliers we want to bid on our services here. And we've sent this information out now to suppliers so that they can interact through the solution and start to put bids in. So again, our solution offers a full supplier portal. So a supplier will get notified through an email that they've been invited to participate in an RFP. And they simply click on that link, and it's a very straightforward interface, very intuitive, and the supplier can then begin to submit bids. And that really brings us down to this next tab, which is View RFX Activity. And why this is important is it's giving you a real-time view of everything that's going on with your suppliers within this bid. So it's showing you how many emails may have gone out to that supplier, the last time the supplier accessed the solution. So again, maybe if you're at the end of the bid cycle and you want to take a quick look at where your suppliers are at, maybe you see a couple suppliers that have accessed the system in the last few hours but haven't submitted a bid. That's a great opportunity to go up to the discussion forum and say, hey, you know, this bid is going to wrap up. You know, we see some activity within the event itself. Maybe this is a good time to go in and take another look or something like that. So again, it just gives you a really nice view of everything that's going on with your suppliers within the solution, how many bids they've submitted, whether or not they've submitted NDAs, things like that. So once you have this information, and you can see here that we have 2 submitted bids within the tool, you can actually then start to do the analysis within the sourcing event itself. And so again, within our Analyze and Award tab, we have some different options as far as just a very high level grid view of what's the best bid, why it's the best bid. You can also designate some awarding scenarios. So when you get into, you know, very large multi-line events, you can let the system do the work for you. It can break it out over a number of bids. We have a number of different algorithms out of the box you can apply to get a kind of full view of the best way to award an event. And then most of our customers like this price synthesis pivot table. And this is just an interactive table that gives you a side-by-side analysis. It's also color-coded, so it'll tell you who the winners is currently winning the event or the lowest bid. It's also interactive, so as you go through here and click on these, then it'll actually populate the award tab here. So at this point with the event, as you guys know, we've jumped over from our price list and we've sent these new these items out, or this item out, to these different suppliers to get different results. And in this case, it looks like Tata came back with the best price. And so there's the next option, which we can do in the solution, is we can come down and actually award this. And so I previously did this again in the interest of time. And so if we come down and take a look at our Create Contract screen, it'll give us a general overview of the event itself. So as you can see, IBM United States lost out, as did KPMG, but Tata will be awarded this new business. And directly from here, what's great is we can come in and simply click on Create or Update a Contract. And what this is going to do is allow us to create a new contract in the system for Tata Consulting Services. And we can designate what type of contract it'll be and an entity. And then it's also going to ask what information you would like to carry over. So again, we had our example statement of work. We may want to renegotiate that once we flip this over to a contract. Any of our team members, so we want to maintain that same team, might be managing this contract moving forward. And then of course, we want to bring our proposal item over that we just got the best price on. One of the other options before I save this as a new contract is potentially IBM United States could have won this event. And then all we would have needed to have done is simply updated their existing contract, and then that would have flipped into the same way. So again, in this case, we are going to save this. And so now you'll see right above my Create Update Contract button, I actually have a reference to this contract within our solution. And this flips us over then into the contract module. So if you remember earlier, we looked at that, the IBM contract that was in a little bit of distress and over budget. And now you can see this contract is new in the solution. There's some date information and other things that may need to be added, but you'll also see that our pricing came over from our event here within the tool. So as soon as we flip that into our contract, all of that information came over. Again, if you look at our contacts tab, these are the same folks that were involved in the sourcing event as well. And then once it goes through its approval process, now you have the ability to order these items through our catalog search within the tool. Okay, so generally the portion I just talked about, so the idea that you're managing suppliers, managing supplier risk, making sure you have a mature supplier environment, then utilizing those relationships you have with the suppliers. So even when we went in to source those items, we went back and looked at the supplier repository and we made sure the risk scores were low or they weren't forbidden from working in a certain commodity. All of that and flipping that information into a contract and then going through the contract lifecycle within our solution is what we consider the upstream. And so that's where you are really working hard to make sure your contracts aren't over budget, that you're not paying too much for items, and again, that you have good relationships with your suppliers. So once you have that and you've accomplished those goals, that's when you can kind of move into this downstream pattern. And so that's when we get into the ability to utilize all this work you've done in the upstream. And generally where we start with that would be within the catalogs themselves. So now if we go into a catalog and we browse items, we'll have updated pricing within the tool. So there's our Tata IT professional services, and we can go in and select that and then simply start building out the cart process here within the tool. And so again, if you remember this start to finish, we've sourced this item. We originally had purchased this item through IBM USA, and we felt like we were paying too much for it. Again, the risk was too high, and now we have it as an item here within the cart. Part of this, the shopping experience itself is super simplified. So again, once your upstream is all in line, it's great for your downstream users that can come into the solution and search for different things. So again, in the event we were searching for IBM, you can see here that we have both hardware and software within the solution. You can also do services, as I mentioned, within the tool. There's also the ability to add non-catalog items if that's something you do. But again, within the ideas of controlling spend, we generally want to purchase this stuff on contract within the solution itself. And you can see down here, we have some IBM agreements, and we can just start actually adding this information to our cart. And so Ben knows he needs an IBM server for this big AP project that's coming up. And he can simply come in, search the catalog, add that to his cart. The other things you can do in the solution are things like compare items. So for example, you could come in and select 2 of these different IBM servers and then do a quick compare and make sure you know the differences before you add that information to the cart themselves. The solution offers a couple different views here. So if you like this more detailed list view, you can toggle between, but we also have this kind of Amazon, larger Amazon look that'll give you more details in this thumbnail view here within the solution. So now that we have an item within our cart here, we'll simply click on our cart and go to our requisition. And what's great about this is all your information is going to default based on the user's profile. So the things like the organization you're ordering for, cost centers, delivery address, all of those items will be pre-entered in the system. This makes the user experience a lot more streamlined, and it also takes away the opportunity to create entries through manual entry or errors through manual entry within the solution. So at this point, Ben knows what he needs to order, and he simply wants to submit this for approval. And you can see up here at the top, Ben has the option to click on Submit for Approval. And now over here on the right-hand side, we've been notified that an order has been created. And we're actually in the purchase order itself. And so if we take a step back and look at how we got here, we can see here's our initial requisition. So we added an item to our cart, and that was our requisition. And we can click on this, and we can take a look at the workflow tied to this requisition. So this is really your first view of the workflows within our tool. The workflows are a major differentiator for us because they are highly configurable and highly flexible. And so what you're really looking at here is the path that an order takes from the time you create it within our system until we generate an order to your vendor or to your supplier. And in this case, it can center around things like a change order. There could be threshold requirements, so if an order is over a certain amount. It may also be exceptions, things like non-catalog items. So again, we want to control rogue spend and maverick spend. So we don't want folks coming in and just putting in non-catalog items without those going through a purchasing department. Again, these workflows are highly configurable, so we develop them or configure them with our clients during implementation. But not only that, our clients have the ability to manage these long-term. So it's not something that's so technical that they have to call IValue back and update these with them. They can actually go in and manage different workflows on their own within the solution. So again, what we're seeing here is we created a simple requisition, and it was under $2,000, which I know is the threshold I have set here. And then it checked to see again if it was a free form item, and it wasn't. So what it did is it went ahead and generated an order within the system. So now on my purchase requisition itself, we have an orders tab. And if I click on that, here's the order that we were just looking for. So again, this idea that the solution is always interlinked anytime you need information, it's right here within your fingertips with any of the objects that you're looking for. So again, let's jump back to our order very quickly, and we'll take a look at the workflow for this order. And so again, this was the order was initialized. It was looking for any PO issues. So maybe it was over budget, or maybe it wasn't, we had a supplier that wasn't supported in this specific commodity. These are all designations that we work with our clients on. In this case, there were no issues here, and we can see from our workflow that it's gone out to our supplier, Louise Magnus, for approval. And again, the supplier is going to get a notification through email, and they'll also get a directional link where they can come back into the tool and then approve this within our solution. So in the interest of time today, again, I put together another example. And so again, you're looking at a browse screen. So I jumped over to our procurement module. And if I drop down, I'm going to browse our orders. And here's an order that I did earlier in the day. And this was for servers in a new Illinois data center. And one of the things you'll notice on the browse order screen is it's giving you 3 different pieces of information here. Is the order just been ordered and it's waiting for the supplier to acknowledge? And you can see here, we're giving you a status that that is in fact the case, that we're waiting for the supplier to acknowledge. But if you look a little bit lower on this example here, you can also see that the item has been received and invoiced. So let's go ahead and take a look at the order record itself. And now as we look down the left-hand side here, if we click on our receipts, we can see that the item has been received within the tool. And so again, the solution offers great ways to receive within the tool. Users can simply come into procurement, browse receipts. So whoever does this within your organization, and then you can simply come in and review each of these individually. But we also offer you a far more efficient way to do that with this pending receipts. And so what this is doing is giving you a line review of all of your orders in the system that are currently pending receipt. And what you can do is manage these all at the same time, and then generate deliveries all at once for them within the tool. So there's a couple different ways for your folks to generate and create receipts in the tool. And then we also offer the option for suppliers to generate an ASN. So as a supplier potentially acknowledges their order, they may have that stock right there within the warehouse, package it up, and they can create an ASN on the spot. And so again, what we're getting at here, when we look at these scenarios with the receipts, we want to make sure that we're receiving what was ordered within the tool. So if we go in and look at our receipt, again, now you should be getting more familiar with our workflow. And what we're looking for is potential deviations within the receipt. Did I order 100 and only 50 were received? And based on those deviations, then we can send those for reconciliation within your organization. So again, in this case, I put a very straightforward example through where we ordered one and we received one. And so our receipt is good. And now we're ready for the invoice. And so another option within our tool is the supplier has the ability to come in through the supplier portal and simply flip the PO into an invoice. And that was the case on this one here. And what we can do is come in and take a look at this invoice. And so we can see that the invoice has all the information, that the line is the same as what was ordered and received. You'll also notice that there's no gap within the invoice itself. So in this case, it looks like it's been sent through to our requester for approval within the solution. So this is our invoice workflow. And what we're looking for within our invoice workflow is a number of scenarios. So number one, is there a PO associated with this? So a lot of our customers are issuing non-PO invoices. So again, in the case that there's not, we're sending it on a different route for specific approval within the tool. Again, there's some other areas we're looking for. Is there a matching receipt? Are there deviations in the receipt? Are there deviations in the invoice itself? And then based on that information, we can route this to the correct department for, again, reconciliation within the tool. And so again, really the idea here when we go through our ordering, receiving, and invoicing is that we get to this point where the invoice has a three-way match and then can be approved for payment back to the supplier. And again, the supplier has access to all this information. So when they come in through the supplier portal, they'll see that the invoice has been, or the product has been received. They'll see that the invoice itself is going through an approval process and can track that through the supplier portal itself. Any questions so far?
Colin, just curious how sort of this platform can integrate with maybe some of my other systems, you know, inside of my procurement office, like if I have a reporting, you know, system for invoices, or if I have a requisition request system. Do you have APIs or other integration sort of potential?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what we have as part of, generally we do some administrative demonstrations, and what we include in those is our integration toolbox. So we have a number of out-of-the-box APIs, really any scenario you can think of as far as the connection type and the data being transmitted. That's another thing we pride ourselves on, is the fact that, you know, these objects within this three-way match don't necessarily need to generate in IValue or originate in IValue. So if you're doing invoicing in a third party, we just need to figure out what those keys are, and we can still do that matching in our solution.
Awesome, that's great.
Okay. So again, I just want to take a step back and make sure everyone's followed us up to this point. So again, we started the demo off earlier and we did our upstream processes. That led us to the ability to browse and purchase items on contract within our solution. And at that point, we can simply come in and shop, much like your standard shopping experience if you're on Amazon or some of your favorite sites that you normally buy from. And then we built that out into our procurement or requisition process. So when we generally create an item, it'll initiate as a cart. So in this example, let's just quickly add 3 of these. And I'll kind of explain a little bit more how that workflow works. And so at this point, we have 3 items with our cart. And if we submit this for approval, it should get hung up in the threshold. So again, I'm way over my budget. I'm only allowed to purchase for $2,000. And so this will go to somebody within your organization. You can see here it's designated Aaron Bell. When he logs into the solution, he's going to have these same type of dashboards that Ben Windsor does. And he'll know that he needs to go in and approve this specific requisition. So the requisition we created was submitted, and it was turned into an order. And so you'll see our order here. And then again, it was sent out to the supplier for review. So right now the supplier has an email in their inbox saying, hey, you got to come approve this order. Basically it's sitting, again, if we check our workflow, we can see it sitting with the supplier here. So again, in the interest of time, we put together some previous examples. And in this case, we went through and showed you actually how to not only receive the items, but then invoice the items within the solution. So again, we should have attained our goals now. We're reaching our savings because we have gone through this process of getting the best price. And now all of our folks are purchasing on contract. And the next logical piece is to start tracking these savings and tracking these results. And the best way to do that is within our analytics. And I'm going to jump really quickly to a user that I set up some analytics prior to the call. And so again, you can see just different home pages for different users. So in this case, this could be an administrative or a CPO homepage. And what I've done is under his favorites is we've created some different analyses here. And so this is all part of our analytics. So if you want, you can also access this by simply clicking on analytics and going to our reporting homepage. And then you have a number of different reports that come with the solution out of the box. What's really nice about these reports are they're kind of the kitchen sink of information. And then we give you the flexibility to go in and scale these down, filter them out, which you can see here. And so what we did in advance of the call is we put together some of Dave Baker's favorite reports here. Dave works in AP, so he's always interested in invoice processing dashboards. And so you can see this is his invoice processing dashboard. And as we scroll down here, it gives just different information. So your top 10 suppliers compared to last year over this year. Again, all of this information is editable if you right click. But the other thing you'll notice over here on the left-hand side now is you have a number of different filters that you can apply. And what's great about this is you have all of these reports out of the box. And then what your end users can do is personalize these for their specific need and save them to their local instance. So again, it'll never affect these administrative or these overhanging reports, but it gives your folks the ability to go in and save these. And then again, they can simply add these to their favorites. And as they come in the morning, they can go through and view the different reports. All of this information is exportable. So as you export it to Excel, Word, or PDF, it maintains all of the formats and the reporting here. So it looks really nice if you need to send an attachment as a report to a boss or something like that, all the information's there. Some of the other great reports that are in here are the PO and Invoice Dashboard. So again, just keeping track of how many POs you currently have in the system, the number of invoices, some of the PO amount by category. So if you're getting into year-end spend reviews or how many purchase orders each group is submitting, this is a great way to track that. Additionally, I keep pointing out that all these graphs are interactive, but what's nice about this is you're looking at your PO amounts by categories, but as I hold down my mouse, it'll start breaking down where you're actually spending that, how much you're actually spending in each of those different commodities here within the solution. Additionally, it's not just spend data and PO invoice data, it's also things like contract workflow data. So if your purchase orders or your sourcing events or your contracts are getting hung up in workflows, this is a great way to come through and review cycle times. So hey, every time we draft a contract, it's stuck in draft for 30 days. Why is that the case? And so again, you can go through and track who are the folks that this is generally sitting with, maybe do an internal audit or review on why that information's taking so long to process. But again, the idea here is that we're giving you as much information as possible so that folks within your organizations can go in and act on that information, make your solutions more efficient, make your processes more efficient, things like that within the tool. Additionally, within the tool, one of our options is the ability to cleanse spend data. And so again, you can always come in and look at the spend within the solution, where you're spending most of your information, which commodities, which organizations. And again, today we used a contract that was over budget as our launching point for why we needed to run a sourcing event. It could be a spend report. So, maybe your CPO comes in one morning and he's, appalled at the amount of money we're spending on IT. And then that's a good time to go in and look at all the IT items within the contract or your contracts, again, see if they're over budget, see if you're paying market price or fair price for those items. And then you could launch a sourcing event based on that. So again, we're trying to collect as much information within the tool to give you the opportunity to just identify where you need to go out, be more efficient, have better relationships with your suppliers, and then potentially source them or update contracts within the solution, things like that. So that's what I wanted to show, kind of that end-to-end today. So again, just to give you a quick recap, we started in the solution as Ben Windsor. We ran through an issue with a current ongoing contract, so we decided to send that out to bid to new suppliers. We actually awarded that to a new supplier, Tata, and then that information was available for us to order on contract within our catalog. So again, that was our first piece, the upstream. The second piece was the downstream, so it's taking advantage of all that hard work going in and being able to order not only at Tata or some past items we had negotiated, and then we just followed that information through the ordering process. So again, the gating process in our workflows, whether it needs to be approved because it's over a certain threshold or because it was free-formed Everyone got a taste of how those workflows will stop that. And then how it generates into the purchase order in the system, and where the supplier can then flip that purchase order into an invoice, of course, tracking any changes to make sure that everything's honest with the original order. And then three-way matching that with the receipt within the tool. So the ability to go in there and do that three-way matching and making sure that everything is going to clear in the books. And then once you have all those processes in place, you have the ability to go in and leverage all these analytics to see, like I said, so where your spend resides, your savings. So, hey, we got this new Tata for a little bit cheaper this year. Let's go a year from now and run a report and see how much we saved on those services compared to when we were working with IBM USA. And so again, it's identifying savings, but then it's also identifying areas where you can improve your business. So we mentioned things like cycle times. How do you improve your workflows and make sure that your processes are very efficient? We're keeping all track of all of that. And as I showed you, we're showing you that in the solution as well. So I hope everybody understood and got the message I was trying to convey. I know 45 minutes is a short time to kind of digest a lot of this information, but I appreciate the opportunity to walk you guys through it.
Thanks, Colin. We appreciate your time as well. So in terms of questions, if there's anyone in the audience that has, anything to submit, please, again, through the QA or the chat, feel free to shoot us a note, or you have IValue's contact information up here. You can use any of these resources to ask your questions privately or directly. So Colin or Ty, any final thoughts before we adjourn?
No, I want to thank Colin for walking people through and just giving some highlights of the great IValue platform, and just again want to reiterate and leave in people's minds that we are a full suite solution that has been recognized by the experts that are out there. So I don't really want to talk necessarily about what we think we do well. We'd rather have other people shoot those praises for us. And if there's any questions that we can answer, walk you through a little bit more of the configurability and flexibility of the platform, we're obviously happy and willing to do that for you.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Colin, thanks, Ty, and thanks to the IValue team for giving us this great demonstration today. And thank you all. Have a good afternoon, and we'll see you on our next event.
Thank you.
Bye now.